Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lucha Underground Rewatch Season 2, Episode 4. Today we will be covering episodes 7 and 8 of Lucha Underground Season 2, and we hope that you guys are along for the ride because these were two great episodes, but these are a couple episodes building up to an even more amazing episode that we'll be covering next week. John?
Yeah, I mean, brother, you said it best. These episodes really were foundational for what we're going to be covering next week in episode 9, that being Aztec Warfare 2. That said, even if Aztec Warfare 2 wasn't a thing, these episodes were fantastic. I mean, you got quality matches here, vignettes that just remind you why you love the cinematic style of Lucha Underground. And, again, episodes that I would just show anybody and say, see what you're missing out on when you give so much of your life to Raw and other disappointing products. This is the shit you're missing out on. So I can't wait to get into this today.
Yeah, man. I mean, really, I think the most beautiful thing about the way that Lucha Underground goes about their weekly television show is the fact that there are no pay-per-views means that they treat every week like a pay-per-view. So even though Aztec Warfare is like this pay-per-view level event, we can still have like a trios championship match and like a world title match on the same episode, the episode before the pay-per-view level show.
Exactly. I mean, brother, these two episodes, and I'd argue virtually any episode of Lucha Underground, they're so packed and they move narratives forward so well that if I miss even one episode, which thankfully hasn't happened to either one of us yet, I would be so freaking livid, because you're right. Because they don't have pay-per-views, you can't fall into that lull of, oh, well, I'm sure I really didn't miss anything this week. Yeah, you fucking did, because they pack a punch every week. It's crazy.
Exactly. And that's the thing, too, is that, like, with WWE, I was kind of thinking about this last night. With WWE, I feel like if they nail the go-home show and then the post-pay-per-view show, they can do pretty much whatever they want in between as long as they nail the next pay-per-view's go-home show. Because if they nail that go-home show, we're going to forgive them for any other kind of crap that they might have been doing in between pay-per-views.
Exactly. And yet with Lucha Underground, though, they don't have those laurels to rest on.
Exactly.
And I love that, though. And I think they love that because they say, well, we don't even need them. Because, we're putting our best foot forward. And when they do have a big show to promote, a la Aztec Warfare 2 or Ultima Lucha or anything of that nature, the efforts only intensify. So they still, in a way, play by the rules that we've just been talking about. It's just for them, it's nonstop. It's ceaseless. And yeah, nowhere is that more evident than these two episodes, the final push before Aztec Warfare 2. So, brother, let's get right into it.
All right, well, once we get to episode 7, we start things off with the recap, which I say the recap is on every episode, but I don't think we even had a recap for episode 8. So when we get to that, it'll be interesting to talk about that. But for episode 7, we did get a recap of the Marty Sexy storyline, Mundo Taya Cage, PJ Blackjack Evans and Drago, and then, of course, the whole thing with Mill and Katrina and kind of working Pentagon into that as well. So then we actually get into the temple, and Sexy Star's at her locker, and the Mac shows up, and he says, hey, girl, I got a match with Marty tonight. I want you to be in my corner. And she disagrees at first. She's like, no, I don't think so. And Mac's just like, listen, this isn't the Sexy Star that I know. She's an ass kicker. She's not afraid of anything. And he basically just kind of talks her into coming out there with him. And, I mean, now in hindsight, she had to regret that decision, but she still made it because she wants to be, cool with Mac.
Yeah, this is really the early stages of what can quite literally be said to be a beautiful friendship. I really enjoy this relationship on screen. Again, I know we're going to be tight-lipped about anything we could perceive as a spoiler or showing our hand too much. But yeah, this is just one interaction of, really many to come. And I just love the rapport these two have. I love that Mac, talks to her, gives it to her straight, like, hey, you're an ass kicker. This isn't the sexy star I know. Come on, get your head in the game. And she's like, yeah, I'll be there for you. And yeah, just good stuff. Sets a good tone for the show.
Yeah, man, this was a decent tone setter, and then we actually went straight to the inside of the temple, and we got the first match of the night, which was Marty the Moth Martinez versus the Mac, which, of course, as we already kind of just addressed, Sexy Star is at ringside lending the Mac her support.
Can I just say, too, like, you look at these two segments, right? The cinematic with Sexy and Mac, and then you go right into this match. Now, think about how Raw does kind of a layup. Like, you have a 15-minute talking segment, and then if enough parties interrupt, oh, well, since you're all here, that kind of thing. I love this because it feels more natural because we get to be privy to two people talking very sincerely to each other. And then we go into the match that, they're concerned with. So I really like that. And didn't take up much time at all. That's another thing. Lucha Underground's always been so good at pacing. That doesn't change here. And as far as the match goes, I mean, you're talking about two great workers in Mac and Marty the Moth, the latter of whom I'm a huge fan of. I mean, that I'm big on Marty the Moth. And yeah, I just love what these two guys did here. And Matt Stryker, man, like, he was having so much fun doing the commentary for Marty. Because when Marty came off the top rope, Matt Stryker's like, the moth flew. And you could just tell, like, he's trying to stifle back the laughter. And there was another point on his commentary. It was like, oh, he's emerged from the larva or just something like that. Again, making like a moth-related bit of commentary. But what did you think of this match here between these two guys?
I mean, but before I even do talk about the match, I wanted to kind of touch on what you talked about before you kind of got into the match as well, regarding the opening segment, this versus Raw, and I think that really does. It kind of exposes a major inconsistency in just the presentation of WWE's product, because especially on Monday Night Raw, but it's something that is actually, SmackDown is guilty of it as well. A lot of the time they try to make it seem like everything is spontaneous and spur of the moment, and they make these matches just because these people are in the ring together and they're angry at each other.
Yes.
But then at the same time, there are other instances where there will be matches that have been set up ahead of time, that have been preordinated, and those matches are, they usually happen in the middle of the show, but then sometimes they do happen to start the show. So really the whole thing with Raw, it's almost like it gives off this air of, we don't know what we're doing, but we're really good at improvising. Whereas with Lucha Underground, it just feels like they have their shit together and they know what they're doing and they're preemptive, and it's presented like a television show, whereas Raw will occasionally admit to being a television show with these pre-planned matches, oh, I know you've got a match later on in the night, and that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, they try really hard to come off as a legit sporting event or like a freaking improv fight place. I don't even know how to describe how you could even justify being oh, well, you guys are all in the ring, so you should all fight each other. That doesn't exist anywhere but in wrestling.
I think, just to kind of tack on to what you said, I think where Lucha Underground really kind of holds a royal flush against the WWE, again, particularly the Raw brand, is its thematic strength. There is nothing wasted on this show. Meanwhile, with Raw being a 3-hour program, and, they could have the thematic strength with their roster, but you could have one feud, say, just hypothetically, Seth Rollins and Samoa Joe, and you could give that narrative teeth. But then somewhere down the pipe, you're going to have Titus O'Neil versus someone or other, and that's not going to go anywhere. Even if Lucha Underground does a seemingly random match, you can bet your ass 9 times out of 10 it's going to lead somewhere, either for the winner or the loser of that bout.
And if it isn't going to lead somewhere, it's because it serves some other purpose. For example, Season 1, Episode 29, the first match of the night was Johnny Mundo versus Aerostar. Now, on the surface, that match seems kind of pointless, but when you actually watch the match and you realize that it was Johnny Mundo's first match after putting Alberto El Patron's head through Dario Cueto's office window, you realize that this match wasn't meant to really progress story so much as it was meant to just put on display Johnny Mundo's new heelish tactics.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of a reestablishment, if you will, of
Well,
Johnny
in
Mundo.
the truest sense of the word, it is an exhibition match, and
Yeah.
NXT used to do those really well, but they've kind of fallen off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Again, I love that this promotion, they have this cool, this calm, this confidence, and you could even see it in the little things. You have a cinematic preceding this bout between Sexy and Mac. One Sexy agrees, and then that maintains its kind of organic nature. They come out, and he has his match. So it's almost like you're watching all this in real time, and that's just another strength that I really like. And then these two, Mac and Marty, go out and they have a really solid match. I mean, again, what did you think about how these two did for the opener?
I really didn't take many notes for this match. There were other matches that I took pretty extensive notes on, but as far as this match goes, it really wasn't much up until the big debut, the big reveal of Mariposa, the Mariposa.
Yeah. I mean, he had some good back and forth here between Marty and Mac. I mean, again, Marty flew over
Oh, I
the
mean,
world at one
absolutely. I mean,
point.
here's the thing, dude. It was enjoyable, but
Yeah,
like there wasn't like anything crazy enough for me to be like, oh man, I need to write that down. I need to talk about that.
exactly. Exactly. And I remember on our first viewing, like the big thing then as well was Mariposa's emergence.
Yeah.
And she comes out, and I remember, I think this was it, where you were just like, man, that attire looks so cool. And I think you were really digging the look of Mariposa at the time and just how everything was presented. And I thought she looked amazing. Sexy Star looked petrified, and kudos to her, for really selling the fear well, because she
Yeah.
immediately froze and became unresponsive. Marty capitalizes on that, does a curb stomp. I realize now that Mac has a poor history with the curb stomp, and it continues here with Marty the Moth, and he gets the win, which was really cool. It was nice to see Marty get a W. And then he says, let me introduce to you the beautiful Mariposa. And, they're just kind of celebrating. And Mariposa tells Sexy, get up, get up. And Sexy actually does, but then Mariposa just kicks her off. So, yeah, Moth Tribe looking strong. And Sexy Star and Mac laid to waste. So, great opening match here, if for nothing else, because we really got to see Mariposa.
Yeah, man. And yeah, the curb stomp, yeah, not good news for the Mac. And if you've ever seen American History X, there's a little bit more deep seated issue with that, but
Yep.
So post match, obviously, like you said, Marty tells everyone to bow down to his sister, the Mariposa, Sexy Star, that whole thing, and then we move on. We get a Phoenix video package with him, talking about coming back from the dead and becoming Gift of the Gods champ, and then of course wanting to become the Lucha Underground champion.
Yeah, I remember the first time seeing this. I thought this was so cool. Because it really was just the underdog story kind of visualized. And I loved his closing line about how, sometimes myths do become legends. I thought that was really cool. So, yeah, this is a nice video package for sure.
Yeah. So then we get to a beautifully done cinematic segment. We've got Drago and Jack Evans in the bathroom, and there's a confrontation between the two. It seems like it's about to get physical, and then PJ Black shows up with nunchucks, and he uses them on Drago, and then it's revealed that Drago and Jack Evans both have their own respective pairs of nunchucks. So we have three guys with nunchucks, two of them on the same page. What do you think is going to happen? Of course, Jack and PJ get the one up on Drago. They start beating him down with the nunchucks, but then Aerostar shows up from his trip into the past, and PJ and Black just kind of decide, hey, let's get out of here, man. And then they leave. So that's about it. But yeah, we had everything in this. We had a dragon, we had a spaceman, we had nunchucks. I mean, hell, we even had a werewolf, a darewolf, should I say.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, I love that there is kind of a serious tone, because the Lucha Underground character is in peril at the hands of two heels, but yet they just have fun with it and they ham it up with the introduction of nunchucks. Like, I just think that's so freaking cool. And, yeah, Aerostar and Drago, which I think is a great little nod to season 1, because we know they're best of 5 series and everything. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the cinematic. I thought it was beautifully shot, very well executed. And I love the beginning of it too, because Draco's coming in all angry. You call yourself the Dragon Slayer? And Jack Evans just keeping that arrogance even when he's being threatened. The people named me. So yeah, Jack Evans is gold, and so was this cinematic.
Yep. So then we get to our second match of this episode, and it is Cage versus Johnny Mundo, or at least it was supposed to be, because then Taya comes out and lets Cage in on a little secret. Johnny already kicked your ass, dude. So now I think it's my turn. And she introduces herself as Taya, the perfect woman. And then she gets in the ring, and we get Cage versus Taya, no disqualification.
I loved everything about this, and I'm not
Right.
even talking in the sense of like, oh, obviously, John, you loved everything about this.
No, but this was great.
This was great. I mean, I even tweeted while we were watching this, rewatching this match, seeing two future world champions just killing it, because that's exactly how I feel about Cage and Taya. They are two future world champions. And what I love about the Taya character...
And by the way, for those of you that have been only watching Netflix and you don't have access to Season 3, know that we did not just spoil anything. Cage and Taya have not won the world title yet. Even in Season 3, you can relax.
Exactly. So
although I guess I did just kind of spoil a Season 2 match by saying that, but still.
Hey, I mean, all the same. I mean, these guys killed it. What I love about the Taya character, too, in this particular instance, I love that she takes the fight to Cage. I love that. She says, it's time for me to kick your ass. And Vampiro does a great job on commentary, just talking about, the following she's established in Mexico, La Huera Loca, and just killing it there. And yeah, these two have a great back and forth. And Taya in this one match won by taking the fight to Cage.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was a great line in here where Taya straight up says, I know you're not a man, but let's see if you have the balls to fight me. And like when she said, I know you're not a man, the crowd was like, oh, like she just did like this, like the lowest of blows. But at the same time, Cage's catchphrase is literally, I'm not a man, comma, I'm a machine. So he literally calls himself not a man. So she didn't insult him. She played into his catchphrase.
Yeah, she's just playing by his rules, man. I don't really know what the problem was. But, I love that she takes the fight to Cage and the bumps that she took. This is why she's going to be an incredible Technico if she ever does have that turn that everybody's been kind of salivating for down the road, because I guess they know her work elsewhere. And they're just like, oh, she'll be so good if she ever does this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, she's amazing just in general. And this match was really the beginning of that. Like, she went through a table, suplex to the outside through it, man. Like, that spot. I remember wincing so hard when that spot happened, because I'm like, oh, God, that's rough. And, Taya didn't back down, though. I mean, she did at one point in the match get a running knees in the corner, which are vicious. God, I love them so much. So, yeah, those two went out. They were having a barn burner. And then Johnny Mundo gets involved, because he's just so courageous and valiant and everything. And he tries to help Taya out. He gets cinder blocks, and it's funny because we're talking about Mac earlier. Cage curb stomping Mac in season 1 through those cinder blocks. I guess Mundo was looking to do something similar, but Cage turns the tables on Mundo. And he's looking to curb stomp him, and I was really getting ready to hold a eulogy for that face. I was thinking, oh, God, please no, please no, please no. But then Taya saves the day. But then, it's back to Taya and Cage a little bit, and then Johnny tries hitting Cage with beer bottles. And as much as I love Johnny, I got to call him out on this. You clearly don't watch your Lucha Underground cinematics, bruh, because that is not going to work, and we knew that already. And he kind of registered a face of shock. And then he strategically placed Taya in front of him so that he could make a getaway. Unfortunately, though, Taya couldn't also escape. She fell victim to Weapon X, and Cage kind of won the match. So, yeah. What did you think about all this?
I mean, yeah, this was great. Taya is amazing. I love, and you know what? I'm going to even acknowledge Brandon Best said in chat, Taya might have sicker knees than Andrade. I think she does. I love Andrade Cien Almas as a performer, but his knees in the corner don't look that strong. Taya's knees look freaking brutal. And it's probably helped by the fact that she is very fit, so her knees look a little bonier than Andrade's. So, I would not want to get hit by that. That would be so bad. And with Andrade, it just looks like he's like, it's more like he's doing it like to your shoulders than to your face. Whereas with Taya, it looks like he's hitting you in the face. She's hitting you.
Oh yeah, it's full face and it's full force too. That's what I love about her knees. Like it's like she puts her back into that shit. And yeah, Cage stands tall. I think he was bleeding a little bit from the bottle, but like Vampiro said, he didn't even blink. And yeah, this makes Cage look like an absolute monster before Aztec Warfare 2. And yeah, just a great outing with these two. Abso-freaking-lutely. I love this.
Yeah, and I did just want to say that Taya actually recently lost her Reina de Reinas championship in AAA. She held that thing. John, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
She held the Reina de Reinas championship for 31 months.
Holy shit. That's that's close to 2.5 years. That's insane.
It's actually over 2.5 years, dude. It's 2 years and then another 7 months on top of that.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, she held that title for 945 days. She is by far the longest reigning Reina de Reinas champion. And I think the next closest reign to her 945-day run was Fabi Apache with a 518-day run. So, I mean, that's a title that gets held for a long time, but Taya held it longer than anyone by over a year.
Who beat her for it?
Hamada from TNA. Do you remember her?
Yeah, I think vaguely I remember her
Ayako. It's Ayako Hamada. She was in TNA for a she was in TNA around the same time as I forget what her TNA name was. Sarita, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting.
It's a Japanese woman. She was in TNA while Sarita was there, and yeah, she finally, someone finally unseated Taya as the Queen of Queens in AAA, and it was Hamada. She is mid-30s, so she, I think she and Taya are actually around the same age. I think Taya is like 32. Hamada is, I think, like 36. So yeah, they're Taya's 33. I didn't realize she was 33, but yeah, Taya's 33. Hamada's 36. Fabi Apache, the one who I believe Taya won the title off of. Yeah, she did. Fabi Apache is also 36. So yeah, the women in AAA have a much longer shelf life than they would in WWE.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I mean, for me, I'm sad for Taya on one end, but on the other, I just feel like she's freed up her waist for more gold now. That's just all there is to it, because I know there's nothing slowing her down. She's brilliant. Cage is brilliant. I mean, I have to give him his due. That guy is still a freak fucking athlete, and I love that these two got to interact, and I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, and it's also been pointed out that cheerleader Melissa Mariposa, since we were just talking about her, she was also in TNA around the time that Sarita and Hamada were there.
Yeah, and
I think that was when she was Awesome Kong's like valet / manager, but I don't remember what her name was back then.
Raisha Saeed.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, she was Raisha Saeed for a while, and then at one point she changed her name to Alyssa Flash. So. Yeah, man, it was that was like one of the better times in the TNA knockout division. So, yeah, Hamada is the new Reina de Reinas, which is really hard for me to say for some reason, but I managed every time in this, so I'm not going to keep pushing my luck and end up screwing it up. So let's move on. Up next, we had and by the way, did we even mention the result of this match with Cage? Yeah, Cage winning because like Mundo cowarded his way out.
No, I said, if you remember, that he strategically placed Taya in front of himself so that he could gain distance, and then, Taya unfortunately couldn't escape. Totally. So she got hit with a weapon.
I mean, clearly this is Taya's fault, right?
Obviously. I mean, you got to be a bit quicker on the draw there. I mean, I love her to death, but, you know.
Totally. But then, so then we had a famous B video, and he's wearing a Wizards hat, and everyone was wondering why, so he straight up said, "Why do I have this Wizards hat on? And how can I make you famous, just like me?" And then we get introduced to Brenda back when she was a hobo. and she's just like, oh, I lost my job and all this other stuff, and I wouldn't have all these problems if I was famous. And then Famous B's like, damn, Brenda, you toe up from the flow up. I can help you with my magic touch. And then he does hot damn alakazam. And then he does it. And she turns into the beautiful Brenda that we've all grown familiar and fond of. And then she thanks Famous B for making me beautiful.
You know it was a great cinematic when you're just smiling and laughing through the recap.
Yep.
I freaking love this shit. And I mean, no wonder that Brenda's like, that's my pimp daddy. Because, yeah, I would hope so.
Dude, sometimes your Brenda impersonation is too good.
Dude, that's the thing. You know I can only take that voice in small doses, even though she's freaking adorable and wonderful and does great humanitarian work with cats. I have a limit with everyone. But yeah, I mean, she's great. He's great, and this, I love that the camera just lingers a little bit too long.
Yes, and he does like the shifty eyes. I love it.
And Brenda's just like, well, what do we do now? It's just, oh, so good, so good.
Yeah, I loved this. So then we get back into the temple, and we see Ivelisse leaving Katrina's office, and Angelico is just like, hey, did you make it happen? And she says, yeah, I did. We got our trio's title shot, but there's a catch. If we don't win, we have to hit the open road. And then they all kind of have this argument, and then, so it's obviously set up for episode 8, which we are covering in this episode of Lucha Rewatch, but it's basically career versus title, because if they win the title, we're good, but if they don't win the title, they are out of the temple forever.
Yeah, high stakes. Ivelisse pulling the team together. I love Son of Havoc's response. You're both idiots. I'm a champion. Okay, that's a bit random, but I guess you're not wrong. And yeah, Ivelisse just like, guys, we just gotta win. That's it. So I love, that she's really kind of the most focused. She's clearly taking that leadership role. And yeah, just a nice cinematic to establish what we can look forward to next week.
Yeah. So then we got our final match of the night for episode 7, which was the main event. The triple threat that everyone loved and has somehow forgotten about, even though it was phenomenal. Prince Puma versus Pentagon Jr. versus Mil Muertes. And man, like I said, this seems to be like the forgotten classic of season 2, because this match was awesome and nobody ever talked about it anymore.
It was so good, and for me personally, I'm not saying Pentagon and Puma were scrubs in this match, because I would never have the audacity to call them scrubs, period. But this really was, for me, the match of Muertes. Like, he fucking dominated.
Well, you're dominant when you can get two guys that hate each other to team up on you because they're scared of losing to you, and then you beat them anyway.
Dude, I love that though, because again, Lucha Underground subverting expectations, because I'm not saying I saw anybody do it. I'm just making an educated assumption based on my years of watching wrestling. I can only assume, right? When Pentagon broke Mil Muertes' arm in episode 1, there were probably some people freaking out. How can you make your champion, especially a guy like Mil Muertes, look like that, this, that, and the other? And not only when he originally heals does he beat that ass, but then in the title defense that he says he's going to have, if you remember in that cinematic, he fucking owns it. Mil Muertes is amazing. Like,
the way that they have managed to make Mil look unstoppable and build him up as this unconquerable monster is wonderful to me. And the great thing is, like, over the course of a 2-week period, and really you could even say a 1-week period if you go episode 8 and then episode 9, since that's like, Wednesday to Wednesday, they managed to take the title off of one unstoppable monster and put it on an even more unstoppable monster, which we will get to next week. But still, like, Mil is unbelievable. And I think that the best part is that you can't even say, like, oh, Mil is this dominant force and Pentagon and Puma are like these like upper mid-carders at best who just got beat by the better man. Because if you pay attention to everything that happened in this match, dude, Pentagon got hit by a freaking 630, and Puma got hit by Pentagon's package pile driver, the Fear Factor. So they both ate each other's finishers before Mill got his in.
Exactly. And I love it too because in Puma's case, it was Mill just being a great champion and playing that defense. In Pentagon's case, it was kind of a shared effort because Pentagon could have gone for the cover right there after the package pile driver. In fact, Vampiro even makes the point, like, what is he doing? Like, I know, like, what he's doing. I don't get why he's doing it. And then when he goes for the arm break, Mill just bursts out of the corner with that spear. And that's when you know, like, shit's done. Because Puma's already eaten so much offense, you know he ain't going to mount shit. And Pentagon just got destroyed. And then he spears Puma. And then probably one of the greatest visuals of this season, as far as in-ring goes, the double flatliner. I mean, goddamn, if you couldn't put any more of an exclamation point on it. And then he pins them both. He doesn't just opt for one and, like, throw the other person aside. He's like, no, I can pin both these guys. And he did. Like, god damn. The weak champion like, this is how you book a world champion. Especially one the kind that Mil Muertes is with that monster aura and everything. This was fantastic.
Man, I just love that Mill looked dominant over both of these guys, but they were still protected in the sense that they ate each other's finishers, and then Mill hit them both with a finisher too. Like, you could never, ever, ever trust the WWE to write something that nuanced, ever.
Yeah. I mean, we're just speaking from experience. We've watched the product so long, again, especially Raw, which I'm glad we've washed our hands of. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, I'll give SmackDown credit. The last big triple threat they had, John Cena, Dean Ambrose, and AJ Styles. Like, I thought that finish was clever, but nothing as good as this. This to me was fantastic. This to me said, yeah, you guys can be busy, trying to outdo each other, but don't forget that I'm the champion. It's me, huge gap, and then you two. Yep. And that's really what came off to me in this match. And that's how it should be, though, because yeah, Puma and Pentagon, they're great and everything, but they're not the world champion. Mil Muertes is. That puts him on an entirely different level, and Lucha Underground let you know that.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, seriously, dude, like, the sequence leading up to the finish here, like, if you are just watching this, like, for the first time and everything is kind of new to you and you catch it at first glance, this seems like they almost, like, buried Puma and Pentagon. But when you actually pay attention to the details of the match, you have Puma, obviously, like I said, hit the 630 on Pentagon. And then Mill broke up the pin, went for the flatliner on Puma, but then Pentagon super kicked him. We had this big, like, super kick party spot where Puma and Pentagon were both super kicking Mill back and forth. And then Pentagon, once they get Mill down, Pentagon hits the pump handle driver on Puma, and then he hits the Fear Factor, which is the package pile driver, which is his finisher. And then when he's going to break the arm, Mill spears Pentagon. So at this point, Puma has eaten two variations of pile drivers, of one of which is a finisher. And Pentagon has eaten a 630 and a spear. And only then does Mill grab both of them and hit the double flatliner for the win. So no, neither one of these guys look any worse because they both beat each other down and then Mill took advantage.
Exactly. So not only is the man a monstrosity, he's actually a shrewd champion because he picked his spot. And I love it too because he picks his spot the moment when Pentagon can't defend himself because he's got himself occupied with Puma's arm ready to break it. So he's left himself totally vulnerable to offense. And that was the window that Muertes capitalized on.
And of course it would be the frickin' the thing that he did to Mill that Mill was more offended by than anything, that would be his downfall. The arm break. He goes for the arm break on Puma. Pentagon or Mill basically gets triggered, like, oh God, he did that to me. I'm going to kill him. And then he kills him.
Exactly. And then he doesn't leave Puma out on the fun because the spear hits to him. I'll tell you, Puma is one of the best sellers that this promotion has. Like, the way that kid can take a fucking bump, like, god damn.
Yeah, it almost makes you wonder if his neck has some kind of rubber in it.
I know, right? Like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, then the double flatliner, of course, and the double pin. Just the cherry on top, man. Like, so freaking good. Mill celebrating, and then if I'm not mistaken, Phoenix does interrupt, right? On the top.
Yeah. After the match is over, Phoenix shows up at the top of the stairs and basically just uses that opportunity to declare that he is cashing in the Gift of the Gods championship and that he will be going after Mill's world title next week.
Yeah, nothing more you could say about that. It was a simple declaration. Do you want to get right into episode 8? Because, again, this did have a
Absolutely.
different start
That brings us to episode 8, and the thing about episode 8, like I said earlier, is we didn't have a recap in this episode that I remember. We didn't have, like, last time on Lucha Underground. We went straight into a cinematic. Katrina approaches Phoenix, tells him that she's tried everything to destroy him, but he just keeps rising from the ashes. It's no secret that it's his powers that she desires and that they could let her be alive again. They could give her life again. And then she even goes as far as to say that sometimes she wonders if she made the wrong choice, if she should have stayed loyal to Phoenix and accepted her fate, and that they would be ruling the temple together. And then they make out, and she says that was our final kiss, because tonight Mil Muertes will destroy the Phoenix once and for all, and you will bring me back from the dead. And then she disappears, because that's what she does.
Yeah, I love this. I remember you and I were stunned when we first saw this. I think cinematically it's beautiful, especially the way they do the kiss because they got great music in the background and everything. So it's got that aesthetic quality. It just deepens the mythology really of both of these characters, because Phoenix is a bird that just cannot die. That's the whole mythology there. And then Katrina, again, the question looms: what exactly is she? What is her history, her origins? And again, that was a kiss. I know some people have been like joking recently, us doing this coverage of season 2, that given Mil and Katrina's history, that makes when they kiss like a little bit weirder. And yeah, I'm not gonna deny it, but this was a full blown kiss. Like she was into this. You could feel the passion, you could feel the affection. And, even when she tells him, like, our last kiss, poor Mil Muertes destroys you, and you could see, like, Phoenix struggling after she teleports, like, putting his hands on top of his head, like, oh, God, what did I do? What am I going to do? There's tension there, and, God, I wish we could speak more freely. I know we're trying to prevent ourselves from speaking spoilers. I'm going to stop myself there, but, yeah, this really is one of the more intriguing relationships that we really get to see blossom, with cinematics like this. Just great stuff.
And at the same time, you've got to admit, this segment, this cinematic, almost makes Katrina a very sympathetic character.
Oh, certainly. Certainly, because when she, reveals that her and Phoenix were something at some time, hence the words, if I should have been, faithful to you and accepted my fate, it's what happened and why didn't she? So many questions, even rewatching this that maybe I didn't think of before because I was so stunned. I'm like, oh, so that's a thing. Oh, okay. And, but now rewatching it and knowing what we know, yeah, it's like, why didn't you? What happened? What were the extraneous circumstances that made you make the decisions that you made? I want to know these people. And I think that's the mark of not just a great wrestling promotion, but a great television show, period. When you want to know the characters you're presented with, when you feel some kind of connection to them. And even Phoenix, who I'm not a big fan of. I know you're not either because we're like, oh, he's good in ring, but not really much beyond that. But when he works with the right people, namely Mil Muertes and Katrina, like that's when I get intrigued. That's when I'm like, I'm interested in you too. So yeah, this cinematic was great.
Yeah, and I know Katrina with a C at the beginning is a reference to La Calavera Katrina, which is an etch, a zinc etching by a famous Mexican printmaker by the name of Jose Posada. But I don't think that the Lucha Underground Katrina character is literally meant to just be like the skeleton that the dude made in this depiction.
Right.
Like I think it's more like, oh well, she is this like supernatural spirit ghost thing. What can we call her as a reference to that? And they just use the Katrina name based on that. But so then after this whole thing with Katrina and Phoenix, we got our first match of the night, and the first match of the night was pretty great. It was a trios championship match, the unlikely trio, Havoc, Angelico, and Iblis, versus the Disciples of Death, Siniestro de la Muerte, Trece, and Barrio Negro. We had Katrina actually got involved in this match. At one point, she grabbed Son of Havoc's foot and pulled him down and he landed face first on the ring apron. So that was kind of brutal. And we even had a Sinestro de la Muerte Killer Bee switch where I think it was Trece was down lying on the ground after taking a move from Angelico, and then Sinestro comes in and takes him out of the ring and then lies there as if he's like in the same place. And he tries to get the one up on Angelico, but the Disciples of Death are just so incompetent that he can't even get the one up on Angelico after doing that deceptive move. And Angelico hits him with a huge knee to the face and then hits him with, I believe, the Fall of the Angels is the name of his finisher.
Yeah, you know what I really enjoyed about this match is that they make no bones. There's no ambiguity here about who the better team is. Like, I think from
Right.
the opening bell, you know that Team Havoc is the better team because they've got that synergy. You know, they're doing great double team work. And the only thing that the Disciples had, to your point, was that, I say very loosely the shrewdness, trying to do the bait and switch, but even that was futile. So, yeah, again, they put their pedal on the gas. They said Team Havoc's the better team, and they let you know it. I mean, I'm not saying this was a squash, but,
The thing is, like, we were actually kind of onto this early on into the Disciples of Death run when there were people that were really into the Disciples of Death, and they were like, oh man, these guys are awesome. They're so cool. Just because of the look, I think, and because they were associated with Katrina and Mill. But like you and I were kind of on to really early that like, no, these guys are like completely incapable of like winning matches on their own. Because like, I think the only match that they actually did win on their own was against the team of Pimpinela Escarlata, Bengala, and Mascarita Sagrada. So like, granted, they're all perfectly capable performers in their own right, but three performers at the very bottom of the Lucha Underground totem pole. And like even then, you had Katrina getting involved with the lick of death and constantly like raising the stone up and stuff, and it took them a while to beat those three. So then when you get to a relatively competent trio, even if they don't have the most chemistry, they're still three individually capable wrestlers. The Disciples of Death are completely outmatched. And then the first match between the Disciples of Death and the Unlikely Trio, it took Katrina for the Disciples to win. And now in this, she tried to help them to win again, but because she couldn't necessarily help them enough, because the referee would have seen it, they end up losing.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, we knew that the only reason those guys had any quote unquote credibility, even had those titles, was again Katrina. Katrina was the glue that held this team together. And, the moment that really kind of ran out and they used up that rope, yeah, they were exposed, and Team Havoc regained the belts for their second championship reign after Son of Havoc's beautiful shooting star press. Which was preceded by Angelico's, what's it called? Fall of the Angels, right?
Yeah.
So,
I actually ended up looking up then while you were talking, and it is the Fall of the Angels. So I actually got it right on the first try. Hooray!
yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, just great work from Team Havoc and
And then I
two-time
think
champions.
Son of Havoc did hit the shooting star to finish Siniestro off.
Yeah, exactly. So it was Fall of the Angels, and then Son of Havoc gets the shooting star press. They regain the titles, two-time trios champions. Great stuff.
Two-time trios champions, and I believe the first ever two-time any champion at all. Or no, I guess Phoenix would be, so never mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because Phoenix, he had the gift of the gods, and then he had to win it back from Cuerno before he could cash it in. So, yeah, second two-time champions in Lucha Underground. Still, I don't think we've had a two-time world champion, though, so maybe that'll end up happening in the long run. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. But in the meantime, what came after this?
Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo, and Puma is working on a punching bag, and Mundo just kind of shows up to talk trash.
I love it, man. He's kind of, needling Puma a little bit. Like, oh, you getting ready for Aztec Warfare 2? Yeah, me too. Took it too easy on you last time. I'm not going to do that again. I'm taking you straight to Slamtown. And he essentially tells Puma, it's my time to be world champion because, it's my world, not yours. So Mundo with his trademark arrogance, which I absolutely adore, and he takes a few shots at the punching bag. But when he walks off, Puma, who clearly has anger issues, growls, and he actually punches a hole through the punching bag. I am like, God damn. And so, yeah, Puma is fierce and Puma is dominant, to say the least.
Speaking of, we were talking about the Disciples of Death earlier and their opponents. We haven't seen Bengala, I don't think, since the match with Cobra Moon a few weeks ago, and I don't know if we've seen Pimpinela Escarlata in all of seasons 2 or 3.
Yeah. I hope Pimpy comes back. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the act personally, and it's I don't know if I can talk about this because I know you and I did watch an interview recently with Chris Joseph, which was so well done.
Yeah.
I don't think he really mentioned any spoilers, but again, I don't think I'm going to talk about it because I got to be guarded. But characters like Pimpy, I hope they come back because I think it's a great variety in the temple. But yeah, we haven't seen them, and we'll see if that changes down the road.
But yeah, like you said, Puma is clearly dealing with some anger issues, which, I mean, honestly, that might even make him vulnerable to maybe some suggestion down the line. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
And he punches through the punching bag, and then we cut away to Rey Mysterio Jr. and El Dragon Azteca Jr. training more, but not really actually training because they're kind of taking a chill. They're kind of taking a break from the training because they both received invitations to Aztec Warfare for the next week. And Rey gives it to Azteca, and there's this moment where Azteca's just like, champagne, what's the occasion? And then Rey gives him his invitation, and he's just like, you know what, your training is done. We're ready to do this, and we both got invites. And I love too that after Rey shows Azteca his invite, he's just like, you're not the only one with something to prove. May the best man win.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice line from Rey because, I mean, you figure at this point he is older, and I mean, physically his body's been through so much, but he's in this new place in Lucha Underground, and he's looking to make his mark. So I actually really like that. I think that said more than what might originally meet the eye, given where he is in his career. And yeah, just a great exchange between him and Azteca for sure.
Definitely. So then we get to our second match of the night, and it's a Texas bull rope match, which automatically means Tejano's going to be in it. But Tejano's opponent in this match was Chavo Guerrero Jr. And as the match is just in the opening, the infancy of itself, we get Cortez Castro and Mr. Cisco, who I guess they were supposed to help Chavo to beat up Tejano in this match, but they drop off the ring apron, they abandon Chavo, and they are done with him. And this, you could kind of look at this as officially being their face turn, their Technico turn, if you will.
Yeah, I love that they just left Chavo high and dry. Like, we are sick and tired of being abused, and they left him. It's like, hey, I'm not done treating you like shit. Get back here. And watching this again for again when we do matches like this, it's gotta be like the third time we've seen this. But I must say, I appreciate this match because this does make narrative sense. Because let's remember, when Tejano was running the gauntlet, the only reason Chavo won was because Tejano's feet were bound with his bull rope by the crew. So the bull rope came into play there, and now Chavo and Tejano have this bull rope match. So I really like that. I like that little sense of continuity there. As far as the match itself goes, it wasn't bad, obviously, but I mean, this is how I feel about Chavo Guerrero's in-ring work in Lucha Underground, because I feel like as a character, he's played a very vital role, and he's been an invaluable asset. In-ring, never bad, but never really anything to write home about, and that's kind of how I felt about this match. It was a good outing, good use of the stip, but, I mean, closing moments come. Chavo tries going for a frog splash. Tejano pulls him off the rope using the bull rope, and he gets his sit-out powerbomb, and he gets the 3 count. So, yeah, Tejano does get his revenge on Chavo. He gets his revenge for Mexico. And, yeah, now Chavo's left with nobody because the crew's like, man, we done with your ass. So,
you know what, though? I like that narrative with the crew even more in hindsight because we've also got to remember Cueto was the reason that the crew was, like, hanging with Chavo in the first place, and he's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no, like, the whole thing was, like, he was going to pay them to basically be Chavo's bodyguards to protect him around the clock in Mexico. And then Cueto left. So, I mean, they haven't been getting paychecks, so why would they keep hanging out with the guy that treats them like shit?
Precisely. It's like, what are we getting out of this again? I don't think we're getting anything, bruh. Yeah, we bounce. And that's it. Chavo's
and this is another one of those great examples of Lucha Underground showing and not telling. Because I feel like if this was WWE, we would have had a backstage segment where Cortez and Cisco would have been having a conference talking about, hey man, did you get your last check from Dario? No, I haven't. Well, if he's not paying us anymore, why are we still hanging around with No, like all that stuff is left up for the audience to figure out, and like we just did. And it's all implied, and then you just see the result of what that conversation would have been.
I love it. I love that Lucha Underground, like they'll tantalize you, you know, with little clues about, again, things like Katrina or how deep the mythology goes. But for most stuff, like, it's intelligent, but it's never like so intelligent that it's like, oh, we need to give you assistance to catch up. No, they trust their audience. They're like, you guys are intelligent enough.
Like, I feel like if WWE tried to do the Katrina character early on, like within the first like 2 times we see her, she would have had like a random stupid quip about how, oh, I'm an old lady. I'm 200 years old. I didn't wait all this time for this. Like they rush to tell you things rather than letting things come about naturally and doing like that's the proper slow burn. To me, a good slow burn is letting things develop naturally and letting your audience find things out as other characters in the story find them out as well. What the WWE tends to do and what they think is a good slow burn is, hey guys, this is happening eventually. Hey guys, this is happening eventually. Hey guys, this is happening eventually for like 5 or 6 weeks. And then maybe we'll get one that's like, hey guys, this is happening next week. And then in some cases, it doesn't even happen, Emma.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You know, you really took the words right out of my mouth as it pertains to the slow burn and what a proper slow burn is. Because I really feel like it's one that is piecemeal, gives you information a little bit at a time, but never so long that it's like, oh, I don't care anymore. God, like Lucha Underground, man. I said this very early on in its run, like first season. They know the hook better than anybody. And yeah, I mean, you definitely see that with stuff like this, and you get payoffs like this, which are so satisfying because, yeah, Chavo is a dick, and they realize there's nothing in it for him anymore, so they're out. I mean, makes perfect logical sense. And yeah, I dug this. Tejano gets the win, so now both these guys can get on with their lives.
Yeah. All right. So then up next, we had a Cueto thing where he's most likely somewhere around Phoenix, Arizona, and he finally decides, hey man, I'm gonna take this key, I'm gonna unlock this door, and I'm gonna bring my big brother out of here, and we're gonna go to the temple because he's ready, and it's time, and we get the big Matanza reveal, and I believe that honestly, I'm gonna go ahead and say I feel like this reveal had a little bit less impact to it because the comic was released earlier in the day on the day that this episode aired, I believe. And it was the issue of the comic that showed Matanza in full. So it's kind of like we translated real life to comic, and now here we're seeing the real life version of what we saw in the comic.
Yeah. I still love it though because of the anticipation. Like, oh, Dario says it's time, and when Dario says anything, you know, like again, he's a man that doesn't like to waste words or mince words, so you know something big is coming, and I love that. And then Matanza emerges, he's got blood, on his attire and everything, and just great imagery, really. And again, I can't wait to cover Aztec Warfare 2 next week, but I gotta stay mum about that for now. But yeah, this was a great cinematic for sure.
Definitely. All right, so then we get to the big one, the main event of the evening, the match of the night, the main event, everything, the Lucha Underground Championship match, Phoenix versus Mil Muertes. And this match was just as they all are between these two, just wonderful.
I mean, violent, vicious, bloody.
I mean, if it's a shame Dario Cueto wasn't in the building for this because he probably would have gotten off a few times during this match.
Oh yeah, he would have had his lotion and his tissues on standby, brother, for this shit.
Yeah.
The amazing visuals of like Mill tearing at Phoenix's mask and then Phoenix returning the favor, which I liked. It's probably one of my favorite moments in Phoenix's career where I'm like, yeah, give it right back to him. This is great, and I feel like with Phoenix. Muertes almost develops a kind of cage syndrome where he cares more about inflicting a beating than winning the match. But I like that, though, because they
You know what, though? That's
are
not even
opposites.
just with Phoenix. That's a Mil Muertes character trait because he has that problem over the course of time with other people, too, and not just Phoenix.
That's true. That's true. Although I would still argue, I don't think it's ever any worse than with Phoenix because of the idea that they're opposites, life and death. And you really see that struggle play out. And what's great here is Phoenix isn't like this superhero that, overcomes all the odds. I mean, he does win. Let's make no bones about it. But even the way he wins, it's not like, oh, so he drew on his super strength of this and that. No, he pulled something. He pulled a unique pin out of his ass in the bottom of the ninth, and it got the job done. But I like that, though, because that's where I feel like Phoenix, if I was to ever be a fan of his, or if there was ever any reason for me to be a fan of his, it would be for his booking in matches like this, because they know, hey, take the beating, but find a way to survive. Not even necessarily win in that way, like dominantly, decisively, just survive. And Phoenix does against Mill. He did it in Grave Consequences, and he did it here because Mill, I mean, I know commentary said he was going to go for the flatliner. It looked more to me like a Uranagi because he was lifting him up. And then Phoenix rolled through. He pinned his arms down. He hooked the legs with his legs, and that was the pinning combination, and he got 3. And Phoenix is just celebrating with the world title. I loved when he celebrated winning Grave Consequences because he knew, he's like, oh my God, I'm alive. This is what it means to live. And it was pretty much the same thing here. Like, oh my God, I'm world champion and I'm alive. Best day ever. So, yeah, I mean, Mill just put a hurting on Phoenix, but it wasn't enough. Phoenix pulls out that pin, gets the world title. He's celebrating with the crowd, and Katrina, who's lost all the power more or less in terms of championships in one night, because Disciples lost the trios championships and then Phoenix just won the world title. She's like, no, I got to show that I still have some form of control here. Phoenix, Aztec Warfare 2, which was originally supposed to be for the #1 contendership, is now going to be for your world title. And we're going to do it just like last year. Your #1, Mill's #20. Great continuity, great callback to season 1. Everything about this, including the post-match, to me was perfection. What did you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. This match was really just brutal. We had, I mean, both guys, like you said, tearing the mask. And I agree with you, too. I love that Mill got his mask torn by Phoenix in this. Not only because then we got to see that sweet-ass ponytail that's under that mask, but also because it was like a next step in the Phoenix character's progression. It showed that he isn't this pure white knight, that he does have a little bit of an edge, because this, I mean, when Mill was tearing Phoenix's mask, we clearly heard from commentary, like, this is the lowest form of disrespect you can have for another luchador, and that showed right there. Like, Phoenix is not only not respected by Mill, but he doesn't have any respect for Mill either.
Exactly. And I love that, though, because why? I mean, because the mask is such a sacred thing in Lucha Libre culture. Bro, if you want to throw down and mess with that, I can reciprocate. And Phoenix does, and I love that. Like, I love that he didn't show any restraint, even like tease it and then be like, no, I'm above this. No, he went straight for it, man. I appreciated that. I'm like, that's the shit I like to see from my baby faces. That fire and that red line that the moment you cross it, I will always be ethical. I will always be principled. But I will throw down and I will get in the mud with you and I am going to beat your ass. And yeah, that was great stuff here from Phoenix. Again, we get that announcement from Katrina. And that's it, dude. That's episode 8. And now next week on Lucha Rewatch, we will be able to discuss Aztec Warfare 2. And man, how much fun that's going to be. Yeah. So any concluding remarks you have about episode 8?
Well, before I do kind of say anything about my concluding remarks, I'm just going to say that I do very fondly remember Aztec Warfare 2 being my match of the year at that point in the year last year. So just to give everyone a little bit of a taste of how great that match was. And we even, I think it was Cliff Amal in chat earlier, said that Aztec Warfare 2 might be the best Battle Royal match of all time. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. That might be jumping the shark a little bit, but I will say it is undoubtedly in my top 5.
Yeah.
And I will also say, and I can say this because there are a bunch of debuts set to happen in Aztec Warfare next week. We already know that Azteca has a debut and Ray has a debut, and Matanza is probably going to be there based on the fact that Cueto let him out of the cage tonight. So there are a bunch of people debuting next week, and I can honestly say one of these debuts is the single best debut that I've probably ever seen of any player, any wrestler, any performer ever in the wrestling business.
Exactly. So, with that said, I think you articulate everything perfectly. I'm going to hand it over to you to take us home.
All right. Well, guys, this was Lucha Rewatch Season 2, Episode 4. We hope that you all are enjoying the Lucha Underground ride. Those of you that have been watching along on Netflix, hopefully you've already burned through Season 1 and have gone back and watched our Season 1 reviews and then probably even our Season 1 rewatch playlist. Both of those are available in the description. We also have Season 2 reviews for those of you that would rather watch through Season 2 and then come back to Lucha Rewatch on your second viewing of the episodes of Season 2. So this the first viewing, you can watch our reviews, and then if you really want to get into the experience of me and John just marking out for everything across the board, you can also watch our Season 2 live reactions playlist. And then I added a new playlist to the channel and to the description, which is the series that we're doing right now, Lucha Underground Rewatch Season 2. I have that in the description as well, and it is ongoing, but the beautiful thing is I have it set up to auto-add every episode that we do that gets processed and uploaded. So when this episode that we're recording right now gets fully processed and is uploaded to YouTube, you're going to be able to go right to the Season 2 playlist of Lucha Rewatch, and it'll have already been added without me needing to do a damn thing. So that's beautiful. And I also want to let everyone know that we are accepting Patreon donations. If we can get up to $200 a month, we will be doing Raw live reactions every week, which, I mean, you might say to yourself, well, why would you ever want to put yourself through that torture? And the simple answer is we have at least a dozen people who show up in our chats for Raw pay-per-views and don't even watch the show. So why not just offer that exact same option for Raw television shows? If you guys want to be able to just skip out on Raw entirely, show up in the TWitWoW chat during Raw and just kind of hang out with a bunch of TWitWoW fans, as well as listening to the two of us react to the show, and we can also be interacting with you guys at the same time, then that's how you do it. You donate to the Patreon. We're not going to be doing any kind of Raw reviews from here on out. Our last planned Raw review was this week. If we do ever do any more Raw reviews in the future, it will be a completely spontaneous thing, and it is going to be because Raw earned it. So if Raw ever has another great show again, that'll be when we do another Raw review. And even then, it's not like we're going to wait for that to happen one time and then start doing them regularly. It'll just be a one-time thing. So if you want us to do Raw live reactions, if you want to be able to not even watch Raw and just show up on the TWitWoW Raw chat and chat it up with other TWitWoW fans, as well as interacting with us, listening to us live react to the show, $200 is the goal on Patreon. It's a little bit on the higher end, but we reached the $80 goal for our SmackDown live reactions, so I figured we hit that bar. Let's raise the bar, and it also kind of correlates to about how much we would want as far as compensation for live reacting to a Raw. Because let's be real, that's $200, and for Raw, that's, I believe it adds up to like, I want to say like 13 hours of live reacting over the course of a month. So that's, I think that's a pretty fair payment plan. So then I'm also going to plug our social media accounts. Twitter, both of our Twitter accounts are in the description, as well as the official TWitWoW Facebook and subreddit. Check those out while you're down there. And hopefully you guys are prepared for NXT tonight, because it is a go-home show. We've gotten 3 go-home shows in a row between Raw, SmackDown, and now NXT. So hopefully NXT steps it up a little bit. Hopefully NXT is as enjoyable or more enjoyable this week as it was last week. And we will see you all for that tonight. And then, of course, we've got the rest of TWitWoW Mania, brother. I'm not going to do the whole plug in that voice. I just wanted to get it out of the way first. Tomorrow, we will be doing our NXT TakeOver Orlando preview predictions Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, or I believe 8 p.m. UK time. We will be doing our March Q&A. And then later on in the evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time, which I guess would be 1 a.m. the following day UK time, we will be doing our WrestleMania 33 preview and predictions. And then, of course, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we are doing live reactions 4 days in a row. Saturday, NXT TakeOver Orlando. Sunday, WrestleMania 33. Monday Night Raw. And Tuesday night, SmackDown Live. So we've got so many live reactions lined up. And then, of course, Wednesday, we are back to the grind. Lucha Underground Rewatch Season 2. And it will be the episode with Aztec Warfare 2 in it. And then, of course, no NXT review later that night. But the following day, on Thursday, we will also be doing our 5 Fave Fives video. Join us to find out who John and my top 5 favorite performers in the WWE's main roster, NXT, Lucha Underground, New Japan, and the indie scene are. You're going to want to tune into that. It's going to be great. And then I don't even know what we have planned after that. I know that on the following Monday, because we're not going to be reviewing Raws anymore, we're going to be doing live reactions to New Japan's Sakura Genesis show, which will have Shibata versus Okada for the New Japan World title on it. And then, of course, we're back to the grind with Tuesday night SmackDown live reactions and then NXT review and all more Lucha rewatch and all that stuff. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to everything. It's TWitWoW Mania, brothers. And we will see you all later tonight for our final NXT review before TakeOver Orlando. Stay tuned.